Hello and welcome to yet another talk, an edition of Cedric Nunn's Photo Talks, in which I talk about an image I have made, including its content, context, and aspects of its making. The image I'm talking about today, the caption reads, Rosie Stradham, one of the last of the colored community that lived in the area after the death of her husband Henry. Ivuna, KwaZulu-Natal, 1993. So we see this elderly woman seated at quite a rough hewn table with some bowls and jugs and teacups and stuff on the table, and images on the wall and a passageway behind her. And this image was made on the occasion of me visiting Rosie Stradham. After the death of her husband, Henry. And this was probably made within a year of his death. And I think it kind of captures, firstly I should say that Rosie was probably 101 or so in this image. And it captures pathos, I'd say, of her life, the bereavement that she felt after decades, probably 7 to 8 decades of living with the dearly beloved. And I have a delightful image of the two of them with my father in the center of me. He loved this family, and this was where my father's family came from, a community that no longer exists. I think I'll insert an image of that community just for a sense of what the potential of that image, that community was when the image was taken in the 1920s, late 1920s or so, which was dispersed because in the 60s it became clear that there was no future for colored people in this area, mixed race, hybridized people in this area that they lived in, rural farming area, and that they would, close to the Nongoma region, and that it was going to become a KwaZulu homeland within, the apartheid matrix of how apartheid was the spatial planning that apartheid had in mind for people. So that entire community, the younger generation, didn't feel inspired to continue living there and moved away, including my father. My grandmother lived in the same region as well, and eventually they dispersed. Interestingly, a lot of them, including my family, the Nunn family, had come as refugees to this area. And I hope I can speak a bit more about, at some other space, about the historically how that happened, where they were caught up in the Zulu Civil Wars of 1883 and lost the land that they had occupied in the present-day Vryheid district, when that land was claimed by the Boers, who had supported one of the factions in the Zulu Civil War. And my family found themselves on the wrong side of history and lost the land that they occupied, and left literally with their belongings, and were taken in very generously into this region by a sympathetic chief. So our family and our community have very happy memories of living in this region, of quite a rugged wilderness with names like Inhlwati, which means python, or Mahlatini, which means bush. It was a fairly uninhabited area, just on the hills above the Hluhluwe Game Reserve. Yeah, quite, my grandfather was a hunter, my dad was a hunter. I was a hunter too as a very young boy until I also had an epiphany and stopped, hunting. But we came from, I grew up in the Hluhluwe area and in that bush, in that magnificent bush area, and to this day love this region. It's imprinted in me genetically, I think. Um, and so did Rosie and Henry, and I'm sure they lived very happy lives there. But yes, finally they were required to leave. So this image is part of my series called Blood Relatives, and it's also part in this anthology that I'm extracting these images for the initial kickoff of this talk series called Call and Response, my 30-year mid-career retrospective. And suffice to say, nothing remains of this home. I did photograph it several years later as ruins, and its location is quite majestic. I couldn't actually capture that easily, overlooking the plains that lead up to Nongoma, which you can actually see in the distance, probably about 50 kilometers away or so, 30, maybe 30, 40 kilometers away. So quite an important document of a bygone era now. Rosie's grandchildren and great-grandchildren are spread throughout the world. I'm in touch with a great-grandchild who lives in the US, and others are, this was a successful family by every means. And yeah, so part of a documentation of my family history. So thank you for watching. More information on myself and my work can be found on my website, a link to which, including my blog and email address, can be found in the video description below. If you liked this talk, remember to click the like button and press subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Thank you.